Hi, welcome to Introduction to BlueJ. I'm going to show you today how to use BlueJ, how to create a new project, how to compile a program, how to run your first Java program, and I'm going to talk about some of the features of BlueJ as well. As you can see in front of you right now, BlueJ is already started. If you have Windows 8.1 or Windows 8 or Windows 7 or Mac OS 10 or Ubuntu, they all kind of start programs a little bit differently. So I started here because I'm not going to be able to go through every single one of those instructions. So hopefully you've already figured that out and you've gotten BlueJ started. So right now, BlueJ in front of you, you can see that there's a main square here. That's our project window, and it's gray right now, and it says use the project menu to create or open a project. So right now, there's no project open. Um, so let's create our first one, and I'm going to talk a little bit about what is a BlueJ project as well. So I'm going to click on the project menu. I got a couple of options here: new, open project, open recent, and open non-BlueJ. So we're going to click on new project. We'll get that started. On the left side, I'm going to select my desktop to make it easier for me to show you, things about BlueJ. But you can definitely create your projects wherever it is you want, in a USB drive, in your My Documents folder, in your Dropbox, in your Google Drive, whatever it is you want to do. So I'm going to choose a folder name. I'm going to call it My First Project. You can see how badly I type. I'm going to click on the Create button. You can see that BlueJ now has a colored, kind of off yellow, off white window now with nothing in it but this what looks like line paper. And on my desktop now, I don't know if you notice, there is now a My First Project folder. So BlueJ treats every project as a separate folder. So that's the first thing we need to know about BlueJ. So what that means is, depending on the scenario and the situation, we're going to kind of use BlueJ to open projects different ways, because there are going to be times when I have you download a project I've already created. There are going to be times when I'm going to ask you to download just a Java file and create a BlueJ project. And there are going to be times when I ask you to create a new project from scratch. And the method is a little bit different for all of them. But if you understand what a BlueJ project is, it makes the whole thing not too bad. So right now, before doing anything else with BlueJ, I'm going to double click on my folder and open it. So you can see that the BlueJ project folder, has two files in it already: package.bluej and readme.txt. Now, the package.bluej is the file that lets BlueJ know that this folder is a BlueJ project folder. Later on, we're going to delete that file and see what happens. But for now, we're going to kind of leave it alone. Now, the other file, the readme.txt file, is for informational purposes only. So if I kind of pull this off to the side and pull my BlueJ project window open here, or bring my BlueJ project window to the forefront, I'm going to double click on this paper icon. And when I double click on the paper icon, it opens that readme.txt. So this project window is a visual representation of your BlueJ project folder. The items you have in that folder, most of the time, will show up in this BlueJ project window in some way or form, usually by a big giant icon. And if I come back to the window of my readme.txt, you can see that it's your kind of normal Windows README file. If you're not familiar with using computers all that much, what that means is README files lets the user know, either properties of this folder or this application, and lets the user know what's going on and what's it about. That's why it's called README. They want the user to double click on it and read it. You can see that here we can store information about project title, purpose of project, version or date, so on and so forth. We're not really going to use this README file too much. Most of this information here, we're going to put into the actual BlueJ files. So I'm going to close this window and come back to my BlueJ window. I'm going to minimize this folder window, clean it up a little bit. All right. So here's my BlueJ project window. There are no Java files in here right now. So I'm going to create a new one. I'm going to click on New Class. Now, there are things about Java that we have not talked about yet. And there are things I'm going to mention today that I'm not going to be able to go into too much detail about because it would be overwhelming. I kind of want to ease you into it. So during the course of these first few months, there are going to be times when I say, hey, check this out, look at this, kind of ignore this and focus your eyes on this. And over the process of the year, I promise you that everything we do, eventually you'll learn about. Why do we need to do this? Java is not a teaching language. It is an industry strength programming language. People have jobs who just program in Java all day. So it's definitely not meant as a teaching language. So what that means is that there's a lot of things up front that are really complex. And like I said, I'll take away some of that complexity by just asking you to ignore it, because it's going to work as long as it's there. All right, so let's create our new project window, our new project. So I'm going to click on New Class, which will bring up a window that says BlueJ, create a new class. And Java files are organized into classes. And we'll talk more about what a class is in the next few days. So I'm going to type in the name of a class. Let's call it Run Me. Okay. I'll hit OK. There's my first Java file. All right. And some of you may have some experience with Java. Some of you might not. But this is a visual representation of my Java file. You can see that I can make it smaller, make it bigger, however, whatever makes you comfortable. Now, these diagonal gray lines through my RunMe file represent something. It lets you know that this file has not been compiled yet. The word compile, C-O-M-P-I-L-E, means to translate into code that the computer can understand. So in class, we're going to talk more about what it means to compile something. But for now, all you need to know is that when you compile a file, you're asking the computer to translate what you have written in Java into another language that the computer can understand. So I'm going to double click on this file. And here is all or some Java code. Now, this Java code is not written by me. This was inserted by BlueJ because BlueJ thinks that this is something we need. And it's okay for after a couple of months of programming in Java, there are some of these things you do need. But for your very first day, this is intimidating and scary. So I'm going to come down here and I'm going to highlight everything and delete it. All right, so this is a Java file as well. There's just nothing in it. Now, to show you what a Java file is, I'm going to kind of type out some lines for you and talk you through some of it. So the very first line we want to pay attention to says public class run me. All of these things mean something. And if I don't have one of them, it won't work. And like I said before, there are certain things we're just going to have to ignore for now. So what I want you to focus on here is the run me name. What I've highlighted here is the name of our class. And it's got to match the name of the file. So I'm going to continue here and show you in a moment. I'm going to click on an open curly brace. I'm going to zoom in here a little bit so you can see it. The open curly brace is usually found just above your enter key. It's sometimes called a curly brace, it's sometimes called a brace, it's sometimes called a mustachio brace or mustache brace. I usually call it a curly brace. And I said an open curly brace, meaning, like a parentheses, there's an opening and a closing one. So you can see how it's kind of paired off. And in programming, just like in the English language, we have curly braces, we have parentheses, and we also have something else called brackets, which we'll talk about later in the year. But we have all of these symbols that allows us to indicate when something starts and when something ends. So what this curly brace is for is to indicate that this run me class is starting here. It's beginning, it's opening. And if I hit enter and choose the closing curly brace, it lets the computer know that this is where the class run me will end. And you can see that BlueJ is also using some coloring schemes here to kind of help you figure out when something begins and ends. So I'm going to come back, hit enter a few times here to give me some space to work with. And this is my class. Now, at this point at the top left, there is a compile button. Now, I'm going to click on that compile button. And again, what that means is I'm asking my computer to translate, to take what I've written, to translate the Java that I've written into another language that the computer understands. So when I click on compile, all right, you can see it now says that our status window down below, it says class compile, no syntax errors. You can see that in the BlueJ project window, the yellow square, I don't know if that beige square that represents run me is now no longer has the gray diagonal lines. And you can see that the status line for the project window also says compiling ... when the ellipse is done. So what this means is it was able to translate what I wrote into something the computer understands. Now, if I was to come back here and let's say I misspelled class and I forgot an S. First of all, you can see BlueJ, it's having all sorts of issues now. The coloring's gone. Class, which was red, is now just black. You know, there's definitely something off. And if I click compile now, there is an error. Now, we're going to talk more about errors later on, but I just wanted to show this to you in case you run into this problem. So, public class run me. Now, the next thing we're going to do is type in a fairly important line of code. You're going to type this in a lot, or you're going to copy and paste it a lot. It's going to look really scary right now, but by the time May rolls around, you're going to be dreaming in this line. All right, so I'm going to type in public static void main. All right. Open parentheses, string with a capital S, open brackets, close bracket, args, which is short for arguments, close parentheses. I'm going to hit enter, open curly brace, hit enter twice, close curly brace. Now you can see that BlueJ is doing a lot of coloring things here, right? The green represents one grouping, the yellow represents another grouping, right? I'm going to put my cursor back there. What we've just typed, public static void main, is complicated. There's a lot going on at that line. Now, I'm not usually going to call this line public static void main. Instead, I'm just going to call it the main method, or the main line for now, the main header. What I've highlighted there is a unique identifier. It's called main for a special reason. I'm not going to go too much. I'm not going to go into it right now either. Just all you have to know is if you want to run a Java program, you need to have this line inside of your class. And it's going to be like this for the first month or so. You're going to keep creating a class. You're going to keep creating the main header. In other words, public static void main, string, bracket, bracket, args. You're going to keep typing this line over and over again. If I were you, I would probably have it in a text file somewhere so you can just copy and paste it over so you don't have to keep typing it over. But I've done this for a few years and students just seem to want to type it. But that's your choice. So I'm going to come here inside of public static void main. Remember, the braces are used to indicate when something begins and ends. So if I come back to public class run me, if I put my cursor next to that opening brace, you can see that BlueJ is highlighting its closing pair. And if I put my cursor next to this opening brace, you can see that BlueJ is highlighting its closing pair. Now, programming is all about details. Spelling things right, making sure that things are supposed to be capitalized should be capitalized, things that are not capitalized or are lowercase, right? It's all about the details. But there is one thing that I want to point out to you. Java does not care about extra white space, right? So I can have all the white space in here I want, and Java's going to ignore it. So Java doesn't care a whole lot about white space uh, because white space is for the programmer. White space is for the programmer to kind of organize stuff. So right now I have public class run me, public static void main. And if I wasn't comfortable with this, I thought it was too crowded, I can put in some white space here, right? And it doesn't have to be an even amount. I can have more here, less here. But you do whatever it is you do to make it more comfortable for you. Now there are certain conventions that the whole world, and by world I'm sorry, the whole programming world uses. These programming conventions are kind of rules that are not part of Java, but rules that we've made up along the way to make it easier for everybody to understand code that they may not have written. You know, they're kind of like social morals or mores. Is that the right word? You know, when you walk down the street and somebody says hi, you say hi back, right? That's kind of the normal. If you're walking through a door and somebody's right behind you, a lot of you hold the door open for them. You know, none of these things are required, but you know, it's just something people do. You know, and they're called conventions, social conventions. In the programming world, there are programming conventions, and we'll talk more about kinds of programming conventions along the way. So let's keep going. Right now it's public static void main. So I'm going to type in a line of code inside of these braces. Say system with a capital S, period, out, period, print, print, ln, that's an L, not a 1, open parentheses, open quotation marks, hello world, close quotation marks, close parentheses. And I'm going to put a semicolon here at the end. Now there's a lot happening on this line. And I know, again, I understand that it looks intimidating, but I want you to focus on the word print, and I want you to focus on the words hello world. If we were to take all of this other stuff away, let me take all of this other stuff away, and if I asked you to guess what this does, I'm hoping most of you will have a pretty good guess. And it doesn't have to be right or wrong, but all of you can probably, garner some meaning from the word print followed by something in quotation marks. All right, so while I'm undoing this, think to yourself, as I put all this complexity back in, what you think it does. Now notice in the background here, my run me icon has got those gray lines again, and it's even got a little white exclamation point inside a red hexagon. It looks dire. It looks like a warning. And it's not compiled anymore because I made changes. It's no longer what it had previously translated. BlueJ knows I've made changes. So my source code, what I've written, my source code, is no longer compiled. And that little symbol, that little warning symbol right there is there because I had made some, I was trying to show you guys some stuff and I inserted errors everywhere. So BlueJ's catching those along the way. But if I click the compile that button now, you can see that it compiles and there were no errors. If you're following along at home, go ahead and click compile and see if that works for you. Now, it compiled successfully, so I'm going to come back to my project window now. I'll pull this to the side so that we can have both of them open. I'm going to come back to my project window, and I'm going to use my right mouse button and right click on Run Me. And you can see here that I have a couple of options. I'm not holding down the right mouse button. I clicked on it and I released, and it gave me these options. It says New Run Me, which has meaning, but we're not going over today. It has void main string bracket args. Now that should look familiar, right? I'm gonna pull it closer. Oops. I'm gonna try to pull it closer without closing it. It looks like I can't, but it should look familiar. It's not exactly the same, and there's a reason for that. But this line does represent this line. Okay, so that is its link. And then we have four options here: Open Editor, Compile, Inspect, Remove. Open Editor is the same as double-clicking on it. When I double-click on it, it opens the file. So if I close this, if I double-click on it, it opens it. If by right-click on Open Editor, does the same thing. Compile, we already know what compile does. Inspect and remove, we'll talk more about in the future. So what I want you to do now is using the left mouse button, or left click, I want you to click on main. So I'm going to click on main. It says BlueJ method call. And then again, it repeats the void main string args, and then it's got a new line in there. It says run me.main. Got some braces, curly braces, and it's highlighted, it's blinking. You don't have to put anything in there, and you can hit OK. Another window pops up. Pull this one down. Another window pops up, and it says BlueJ terminal window, my first project, and it says hello world. All right. So that is your first Java project. If you were not following along, I encourage you to go ahead and create your own BlueJ project now at home. Give it a try so that you can come to class prepared tomorrow with any problems or you need help with anything. Don't forget to jump on Piazza as well if you need any help tonight. And there should be people online there willing to help you. Okay, thank you.